Okay, who else just finished watching the last segment of R. Kelly's situation? So, just my 2 cents. I feel like before I watched this situation, I was just expecting sexual deviance and underage sex and just that type of thing. What I'm finding is that he has kidnapped people. So I don't know what the statute of limitations is for rape and kidnapping uh, in Chicago or on a national level because he has girls in every state, in different hotels. Hey, Shakira, your thoughts on this is important to me. I'm just speaking to the fact that it's one thing when, you're 18, you go down, you make a bad mistake, and you have a sexual experience that may not have worked in your favor because it was not what it was pitched as, opposed to going somewhere, having a bad experience, and not being able to get back home. So that I think is what's most troublesome to me is that so many people were there and couldn't get out. People had no means of leaving, whether it was financial or Haiti. I just think it's really crazy. R. Kelly is somebody who I think we all can look back to certain events, whether it's prom or a wedding, a funeral, whatever, and he's a piece of that event. But the more and more you watch this particular segment, it's done now, thank God. But the more you watch it, the more disturbing it becomes. I don't know. I don't know that I can support R. Kelly in any form. I don't think I want to listen to him anymore. They're now boycotting him on certain platforms. I think that's smart, especially since this is still active. They did Bill so dirty, and if you're gonna do that to Bill, let's clear the playing field because this is nuts. There was one girl who hasn't seen her parents, or they haven't seen their child, I should say, in 3 years. She was taken at 17. So it's just interesting how he targets these women at a certain age point, that 16 to 17-year-old cusp, where most women can agree they feel independent, they're mature, they're either in school, they know where they're going, they're motivated, which most of these women were. And then he just kind of snatches them. Also, I'll admit a little ignorance on my part, the Pied Piper. Okay. Most nursery rhymes speak to situations that are inappropriate, sad, and just mean. So when you look at certain nursery rhymes, the Pied Piper, I had no idea the hidden innuendo behind the nursery rhyme. So apparently, this gentleman was using his his music to eradicate rodents from a neighborhood, and when it was time to pay up, and they didn't pay the Pied Piper, he came back and used different music or whatever to steal the children of the neighborhood, and that's why they call R. Kelly the Pied Piper, or he calls himself that. So it's kind of a smack in the face of the authorities. This is all after the fact. I also find it interesting that there's some women who, after everything, whether it's the court cases, him being charged, charges dismissed, found not guilty, you still know there's questionable circumstances behind his behavior. The fact that there's so many women who were still potentially open to it tells you how moldable some of us in society are. I'm just glad that I was old enough to realize that I had other options. One, two, again, I had family, because a lot of these people, half of them have family, the other half don't. I think it was important. One person said, like, he can weed out the level as to where you can be manipulated. Also interesting. I don't know how he hasn't had charges brought up on him yet. That's what I think. I don't care what state he's in. I don't care where the statute of limitations lies. There's so many different charges I think he can be hit with. The fact that he's walking around doing concerts, and he's also mad that his concerts are being blocked, which I think is interesting. He should be happy he's not under the jail, which is where he should be. In watching this, it just goes to show you You have video, you have testimony, and yet he's still walking around. So what does it take to be taken seriously? So that's just my 2 cents. Again, watching this series, I was really shocked. I thought I was going to just see sexual deviance, and instead I'm seeing like kidnapping. I don't know. Hey, Elsa, how are you? Congratulations. Happy New Year. I just think it's interesting that nothing has been... And also, wait, how about this? Elsa and I know each other in the medical fields. So speaking to... Oh, karma, it's coming, no doubt. And it's unfortunate because, as you mentioned, karma, Drea speaks to that because it comes back with her children. Her children are tormented in school. They can't sit with anybody at the lunch table because their father's a child molester. That's kind of scary. Speaking to karma, and Elsa also being in the medical field with me, one of the main things that we have to do, every 6 months you get blood work done. So if you're dating someone in the medical field, you're clean because you have to have your shit tested. So when you have herpes, you're supposed to have that reported to everybody. Happy New Year. When you have an STD of that magnitude, you're supposed to have it reported. Who are the last 5-6 partners? What have you been doing the last 5-6 months? Everyone's supposed to be contacted. There's a whole protocol. So for none of this to have been followed for him, why is he the exception to the rule, knowing that he's a predator? That's a big problem. Hey, Shay, that's a big problem for me. Hey, Ann, do you see my hair, boo? And I know listen, I need to come see you. I know you're retired and everything, but make an exception for the kid. I got you. But getting back to this sad nonsense that is R. Kelly, and I look at my support system slowly coming up on Facebook, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. But it's because I have people like this in my corner that I was not at his, prey. You look at these women, they're basically women who were in that in-between phase. They wanted to be successful, and most of them had talent. That's the other crazy part. Listen, I've been telling my story for years before this whole thing came out. So when you're watching it and women are telling he's saying the same things. His number, by the way, back in the day, his number's disconnected. Because right after he got, listen, I came to work. I was so busy talking to him almost every day at work on conference. When I came to work, my girlfriend was like, Jay, we have a video for you. What? Fam. He was on speed dial at my job. It was like crazy. So the fact that they tell you he gives you personal attention, yes, it's crazy. He makes you feel like you're the only person. Again, I'm thinking it's just a sexual situation. That's what we thought it was. Until this. This is something completely different. And wait a second. Here's the punchline. You have herpes? And you didn't have that disclosed to anybody? That's definitely a crime in various states. So why is he not arrested? Also, this is even more comical. I had a conversation with somebody who shall remain nameless. I don't want to get cut. He doesn't even use technology. My dad, though, will find out and I'll be in trouble. We had a conversation about somebody else, again, who shall remain nameless, about not paying child support. And that's a big crime in this country. When you don't pay child support, it takes little things. And people always go crazy. There's little expenses. There's medical bills. There's the eye exam. There's dental. There's all type of stuff. If you don't pay medical bills and different things for your kids, you do need assistance. Birthday parties, school supplies, whatever, right? The bottom line is, when I find out Dre is telling us he's not paying child support and he's like a gajillionaire, what can the rest of us expect? We need to step up, honest to God, and do something about lack of child support, checking in this guy and his cult-like following he has. Hey, Trishy, happy birthday, booby. It's just, we're talking about R. Kelly, the Pied Piper, just to catch you up. So when we look at his realm, it's been 20 years. How many women have not spoken about this? That's the frightening part. We're in trouble as a culture if we don't address it after this point, after it being this mainstream, and having people like John Legend, thank you, John, for coming out and speaking, Charlemagne, who I've known Charlemagne for 20 years, so he's always been vocal. Thank you, Charlemagne. I just think we could have had way more people speak out. I think people like Jay-Z were vocal without speaking. His tour was cut short. It speaks for itself. A lot of his tours currently are being cut. And I can see that happening more and more based on this docu-series. Why do I think the black culture accepts it? The same thing with Mike. There's so many black entertainers. We'll just stick with the black ones for now. Forget the white ones. I'm black and white. I can say what I want. But the black ones for now, those are our heroes. And how deep does it go? Half these people are dead now. How many people were like this prior to the Me Too movement? That's always been my thing. How many years back does it go? Was it worse back then or is it worse now? When did people have the most leverage? How deep does the rabbit hole go? That's my thing. So is this the beginning? Are we in the middle? You know, one year it's actors. This year it's rappers. Like, at what point does it end? It's going to keep going, which is why women or whoever is assaulted need to say it when it happens. Because if you don't say anything, you're basically complicit in having it happen to the next person. Do I think he'll ever go to jail? I think he needs to go to jail. And I think he'll be manhandled in jail, which is why he's done everything in his power to stay out of jail, because they don't do child molesters any due diligence locked up. Can I separate the person from the talent? I would like to, but you can't, because when you support someone, like, it's different. So can I do that? Yeah, sure, I can do that, because I have two or three of my favorite albums of R. Kelly, because I grew up to him, in my house. I have the hard copy, so I can play it. I already paid for that shit. I paid for that 20 years ago. So I could pay it. He's already been paid. But when you stream music currently, or you're looking things up now on YouTube and things, he's getting a check. When you go to a concert, would I pay to go to a concert? No. Will I be downloading his music, streaming his music? No. Is there a reason? I had no idea he had a 19-minute, basically, apology to his victims. Like, I had no idea, because I'm not looking for him. Yeah, he should be in jail, and I don't know why this is such a hard thing for people to understand. On the higher up level, like, you know, fans can have their own opinion, right? But in the authorities, I feel like there's got to be something they can charge him with. That's just my opinion. There's no way everything he's doing and still is harboring kids, and I guess because they're over 18, there's that gray period. But I think it's a problem. I haven't seen my kid in 3 years. She doesn't have a phone. It's one thing if I'm kidnapped by R. Kelly and I'm held against my will and I can't get home, but I'm in a nice, lavish hotel with food and drinks and whatever. But I'm here tucked in a basement somewhere peeing in a bucket? I'm sorry, what? And he's not arrested somehow? There's no loophole? All these loopholes they find for everybody else, they can't find one for this guy? So that's, I guess, my challenge for the authorities. I don't care how far this goes, but I do challenge you to watch this. And if you haven't watched it, like, I had to watch it first. But if you think me and Kai are not watching this like next week, absolutely. Peeing the bucket is crazy. Are you kidding me? Sometimes you have no choice. One time I was caught in traffic. I was like, oh, God. I'm like, GW traffic. I was there for like 3 hours. A tanker had spilled. I was like, I'll be back, okay? Not dealing with R. Kelly. Are you crazy? That's crazy to me. There's no way you're going to tell me this is normal life and you're not calling your family, you're not checking in. And if you look at people when they're talking, their hands are physically shaking. This shit really happened. So for people to sit there and ignore it, think they're going to still go to a concert, is it going to be... Obviously it was, Charles. Like, you couldn't convict him. Is it going to be hard to convict him because he's a celebrity? Obviously it is. He has bank. He has pull. He has presence still, unfortunately. About watching mental abuse is one thing, but so is physical. He had both. He's mentioned that he was assaulted by female relatives in his family, also a male neighbor. So he has issues with his own identity, like, which is why he had the girl shave her head. Like he has a thing for tomboys, which is, you know, there's all these different things I learned watching this, which is why I watched it. But what I didn't expect to find out is that he's harboring girls in a cult-like setting in various states. How powerful is it that no one else is there, but you don't want to leave the hotel room? You couldn't do that to a grown person. You're doing that to a bracket of people that are easy to manipulate. Okay? So we could talk about mental abuse. They knew this. They didn't put any special requirements on him where he could not go, and that's a big problem for me. When you're watching this, it's like, and then you listen to the lyrics, you're mentally fried. Listen, fam. First of all, I killed my whole fucking battery. I gotta go charge this shit. And I haven't eaten in like 3 days watching this. I have notes because I have a show on Tuesday. And keep it in the closet? Fam. When he jumped out the closet, I'm like this. And how many artists were complicit? When I say complicit, okay, so I've done my share of concerts. You have what's called a rider. Each artist has requirements that they want behind the scenes, and some requirements are crazy. And you always see who's coming in with the artist behind the scenes. You can't say anything. So I'm like, okay. Now, when you have someone like R. Kelly, that's a much grander scale than I was at, obviously, or else I wouldn't be shouting you out from the Bronx still. Not that I don't love the Bronx, but I just wouldn't be still, I'd be visiting, okay? Bottom line, when you see what writers we had to deal with opposed to what people who were dealing with R. Kelly had to deal with, I can't imagine. He had a queen-size bed built behind the studio. So that just goes to show you what his level of professionalism was. And what Drea said, the ex-wife, she was impressed with his level of multitasking because you're touring, you're recording music, you're traveling, you're recording a video, you're training new music, you're all over the place. You have to sleep, you have to eat. So he was that good at camouflaging his behavior on multiple levels, that's extremely talented. You've been doing this for years. You're a professional. You've been doing this since before you were at that level. So his level of manipulation goes just beyond anything I've ever seen in my life. But again, I think the biggest thing I want to make, my point when I go on my radio show on Tuesday, the biggest thing I'm going to say is it's not the sexual deviance, because that was a big thing for me. Like I expected to see I expected to see him tying girls up. I expected to see, XXX.com. I mean, he was peeing on girls. Peeing on girls was already a problem, but this is nothing compared to holding them against their own will without food, water, having them pee in buckets, asked to go to the bathroom, with help from social media. Is this prison, or am I in a quote-unquote relationship? Also, a lot of these women have not had sexual experiences to know that threesomes and foursomes and let's gangbang it out, that's not the norm here. That's not the norm. So you're breeding women to think that this is the norm, and this is what they're now putting off into the atmosphere. Also, again, let's say it one more time. If he had herpes, how many people did he infect and then have them infect? Everything's a tree. So your sexual history is important, because who are you dealing, like, what? Okay. He knows what he's doing, and exactly, he's a master manipulator, which is why it's such a problem, because he's not, in my opinion. I don't respect a gangster like that, because a master manipulator goes after somebody that's not an easy target. If you're coming after a target, a demographic that hasn't fully had their brain developed, or may have gone through different things in their childhood on their own, let alone your bullshit, my issue is getting past that. He takes on that demographic that hasn't, that's still kind of in limbo. And that's a problem. That's called you're a predator. You're preying on people. I addressed that, booby. The few in their 30s. So 1 second, because I'm 38. Got you. When my whole thing with R. Kelly happened, I was 20, and he was annoyed that I was 20. My bad, boo. I'll be 21 in a couple of days. Okay. When you're 30, 35, 38, 40, you know better. Plus, you've seen the trial, the news, and this is right around when social media was kind of at its cusp. 2005, 6 was like when Facebook was really just kind of getting into gear, but you still had to read a newspaper. There's never one without the other, right? We don't have both, but it's like you're either doing one or the other. You're either social media or you're reading a newspaper, right? So if you're grandpa, maybe you don't do Instagram every day, but you're reading the Post. It's a balance. It's one or the other, okay? So you knew what was going on. I had no idea. When I'm 20, I had no idea. My only issue was Aaliyah. And I'm thinking I didn't even know Leah was as young as she was until I'm watching this. When you're watching this, I'm like this. But where are the parents, as I guess the other issue? That's something else I did want to touch on before I knew that he was kidnapping girls. So it's like, where do I start? I did make food. I was going to eat, but apparently I'm in the middle of I just don't understand where the culpability starts and ends, kind of, because you have a child who's, but how much is your child worth, Booba? Because you can be paid off, but you still have to deal with your child. So I got the money, right? But I still got to deal with a child who has demons inside. She'll never be right. She's going to be living with me, clinging to me, who can't be in a healthy relationship, who never should have been alone with him to begin with. That's really the problem. There's a lot of people who let this guy be with their child unsupervised, and I want to know why. Yes, he's a twisted individual. His older brother's locked up. So we can, hold on 1 second. The security guard, and we're going to talk about who was wrong and right. The security guard was completely complicit and is now remorseful. No one needs you to be sorry now. Like, you should have been more involved then. There was a lot of adults that were in that circumference that could have stepped up, and they didn't have to do it directly. They didn't have to confront R. Kelly and go, this is crazy. No one asked you to do that. You could have just made a phone call. Could have just dropped a little dime. Sorry. You do it any other time. And this is the other thing. You're respecting somebody who's violating children. Forget women, because apparently we don't matter anyway. And now there's a Me Too movement. There's all this stuff now. Now we have things cooking for us. Yeah, okay. Let's go with the kids. I'll stick with the kids first. We can definitely do the women thing. But you're going to tell me no one cares about all these kids that are like 15, 16 years old, somewhere in an apartment, in like a bedroom, in an attic, or they have rooms. There's certain names for rooms. If you haven't seen this docu-series, and it is hard to watch, the first 2 hours, not crazy. The first 2 hours is like more backgrounds, hard, crazy. But the second 2 days was more like mouth-dropping, wow, how are you not in jail on some sort of kidnapping charges? I don't know who he knows. I don't know what connections he has. I agree, Mr. Grant. There's no reason that these men don't think this is a problem. Where are these women coming from? How old are you? And I know I look young, and everybody, and I'm black and white, so I'll just speak to the black half for a second. A few black folks, you don't know how old they are. They can be anywhere from 25 to 60. If I'm lying, I'm dying. Women are the same way, depending upon diet, how they take care of themselves, hairstyle. You don't know how old a person is sometimes. But when you ask and you're told, there's got to be an understanding where this doesn't make sense. What are you getting out of it? Also, if the person's a virgin or has no sexual history or experience, what are they bringing to the table? So you're looking to manipulate from the gate. You're not looking to create a mutual anything. You're looking to control and manipulate from the gate. So once you have the sexual control, you, I guess, keep everything. You focus on, I'm the only person who loves you. I have the money. I have the house. I have this. I just don't know how he's not convicted on something. So I am hungry. I'm going to definitely go eat my dinner. I don't know. I'm definitely not going to be working with R. Kelly via streaming or YouTube. And that's a big artist. I love him. There's a couple of artists that I'm big fans of. And I always thought I would be supporting. And I think that today is my day. I can't do it. I can't do that. Because by supporting him and streaming him and going to concerts and buying paraphernalia and whatever, in essence, you're supporting his movement. That's why he's able to pay for hotels and, airplane flights and all type of ground transportation and whatever else to make this situation work for him. And I think that's a very big issue that we can solve by not supporting his concerts, which we've seen a lot be boycotted as of late. That's something that we all can contribute in. I think that somebody mentioned on the thread earlier that black folks have a lot to do with the continuance of this nonsense, not just on his level. There's so many people who have violated the culture Black and white. Really, I'm tired of the whole race thing. It's kind of crazy. Like it's like 2000 and I don't know 19, 20, whatever year we're at, and it's like we're still talking about race. I'm just kind of disgusted. I don't care what color he is. I do think it's important to mention the color of the girls because if these were some white girls, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all. Me being light skinned with green eyes, I have to speak to that because if it was me, you better understand there'd be a whole armada of people at Chicago's studio, like kick down the door because that's just what it is. We write letters and we handle things a little differently. It's interesting being both. I get feedback and insight from both angles, and all I can hope is that I help people out on the other end that they don't kind of understand. I don't understand this because I don't care. Like I said, I don't care what color you are. You have girls kept under your captivity. They haven't eaten, haven't had anything to drink, and they're using the restroom in like a trash can or whatever. So I think that the police need to do their due diligence. I think this is a federal case because he's doing this on a national level. Like this is different states. In this particular docu-series, they've mentioned at least 6 states that I can count off the top now. So there may be more. I'm sure there's more. He travels. This is international potentially. So we may not be able to get him here, but there's somebody else who probably can. And if there are people who have had recent experiences, I think the statute of limitations for rape in Chicago was 7 years last I checked, I believe. So that's one. I have to check for kidnapping. I don't know what kidnapping is, but this is not new. This is still going on. So somebody can come up and say, listen, we have a problem. Let's talk about it. Yeah, I agree, guys. Hey, guys, I agree. It's not just sad. It's sad if we allow it to fester. Now that it's out there and people are aware that he's not just a sexual deviant, that he's also someone who harbors innocent young girls. This is a different story. Is this the same R. Kelly? Like, I'm confused. Like, watching this, I'm like, am I high enough or not high enough? Like, at what point does this stop? Does it plateau? Are we still going up? And that's really what you have to say to yourself. This is airing the top of the year, boobies. So where are we going to be by the summertime? And this is one person. How many other, keep it in the closet, how many other people do we have that are going to slowly come out of the woodwork? Not just with respect to R. Kelly, but other artists. That's appropriate. It's appropriate. Trust no one. It's appropriate because this is, like I said, if you get on a plane and sign yourself up to be peed on and you're 19, 20 years old, do your thing. Knock yourself out. But if you're 16 and you're being solicited, A, that's a problem. Or B, we go back to the person who wants to be peed on at 19, 20 years old. You're legal, no problem. So I go to be peed on at 19, 20. What happens is if I can't leave, that's called kidnapping. That's crazy. So that's a whole different charge, and I don't think nobody I'm aware. I've never heard anybody talk about R. Kelly with kidnapping. It's a whole different conversation. So I'm curious. Radio, Real Deal FM radio, this Tuesday from 8 to 10. I'll be on taking calls. I'll post the promo later so you know where to call and whatever. But I am horrified. And I am also curious to hear what people have to say because I know it just can't be me. Charles, I agree. I didn't say that getting peed on was being loved or having sex. That's not my definition of it. What I'm saying is I think when people tuned in to this series, they expected to hear about sexual deviance. I expected to hear about a whole different level of crazy. I didn't expect to hear about someone being kidnapped and held against their will for months to years at a time, not being fed, and not given anything to drink, and being forced to urinate in a bucket in the corner. I think that's it. That's how I feel. I just, if you're older and that's what you like, do your thing. If you're younger and being manipulated, number one, flag on the play. Number two, if this is what you choose to do and you're overage and I can't come home, This is no longer at my consent. Anyway, it's been great, guys. The energy has been amazing. I'm so sorry that the conversation's about this. I mean, it's just so bizarre, especially since I think that I'm not the only person that can say he was a big part of my childhood. 38, so I've been here for the entire 3 decades of his career, which is what makes it complicated. But you have to be honest. Can you really support it? When you're listening to the music, does it turn you on the same way as it would before? Probably not, because now I'm thinking of little children dry humping each other, getting peed on. All right, well, thanks, R. I'll talk to you guys soon. It's been fun.